quite an unusual campaign, which was the idea was instead of being big, brash and in your face like Nike, it was to be much more thoughtful. And I think his strategy was I can't remember what his phrase was, but it was like, if we show that we understand the runners, they may trust our shoes more, or something like that. Probably better than that. But it was essentially that. How do we demonstrate that we know what they go through? So I did some ads for him with him in the first year that was all about where your mind goes when you run and this sort of thing. And then in the second year, I got the brief on my own. And it's a sort of weird thing, you sort of go into one of these holes where you think, I mean, I run then and run now just about. And you sort of think, well, what do you, it's not like if you were writing about football or some things, there seems like there's 1,000 places to turn. But when you go through the process of, so what's happening when I'm running that I can let people know, you literally go, well, I'm going forward. You have to go through these basic things when you're creative. You think, well, let's just write, I'll go forward, and my arms are moving about. And you think nothing happens, does it? What do? You go past things, you speed up, it gets hard. So anyway, you kind of, there's a sort of vomit draft of putting out all this stuff. And there was one thing, out of that came a few ads, but there was one that I liked, that I thought, well, that seems a bit more unusual. I don't remember anyone talking about that. I didn't think, well, that's really good. I just thought, I don't remember people talking about that. And I don't know whether lots of people do it, which is this idea that, I used to go, particularly around that time, running around Regent's Park with Mike McKenna. And I don't know whether it was because we weren't fit enough, but when we were coming to the end, we'd go, well, let's stop at the gate. And then we'd get to the gate and think, oh, fuck it, let's get to that tree. And then we'd go, well, let's get to the car, and we just claw our way to the last bit. And that seemed to be a regular occurrence. So I thought, I don't remember seeing that in, say, a Nike ad, which was the big competition. And they had hundreds of amazing ads on running. And they're all, in the American ones actually, were in that more thoughtful vein. So I think that started off as a scribble that said something like, just a bit further, just a bit more, just a bit. It was sort of okay, and it got rejected. And then, because I liked it, I put it together. We had, I found a shot in the basement, and then I made it specific, which is generally a sort of good tip, that when you make things specific, that I think I've mentioned this on my blog, is if you say he had some cake, or it's better to say he had some Battenberg cake. It's just it just seems to, when you're specific, it just seems to sort of improve things a little bit more. So anyway, having found the shot, I then called out all the things in the shot, just to the sign, I tried to look down the street, just to the signpost, just to the car, just to the whatever. And then somehow that just the act of making it, rather than it being a scribble and being a bit more specific, seemed to make it 200% better. Still a bit of a battle getting it through.
Through Tim or through the client?
Through Tim was not so keen on it. He just didn't think people did that, which was,
Because I'm really pleased you've said all that, because one of my things was, I love this poster a lot. Particularly for all those reasons you said, because I was thinking you've done the thing, which is that's what they think. And when I say they, runners, and I was thinking, did the writer, was he a big runner? So were you a massive runner, or were you just I wasn't that. I was a 3-4 times a week around the park runner. I wasn't that going to competitions, but I regularly ran. Right, because you could. There's a whole slew of them. A, find your own B and stuff like that. Where
it's very hard to find the difference between these things being good and bad. Is that little tiny bit of, they feel like nothing. These tiny little observations that you haven't seen, and there was a few of them that come out of that. I mean, the interesting thing for me with that is that my worry was that, did anyone else do it? Tim said they don't. He gave me the definitive that they don't. And then I asked a few people in the department, like Tony Davison and various other people that we used to play football with. And they went, oh, yeah, I do that. That's good, yeah. And they seemed to recognise that that's what they did. And then, of course, that sort of did very well at the awards. And lots of people say, I do that. I mean, even now, like, it's very old, say I do that. So it's almost like a little secret
It's a truth, isn't
inside
it?
thing. But it's fun, but it's hard to sort of find these little things. And then sometimes when you do, they don't seem very valuable. They're not like big, exciting, wow, that's amazing.
So do you think there is the lesson in that, not lesson, but you kept going, excuse the pun, just to the next layout, just to the basement.
Yeah.
But by the act of putting it together, you felt there was something a bit more in it.
Yeah.
And so you have to go with your intuition a bit, don't you? Rather than going, if someone said, look, I'm not sure about that. If you have that sort of thing inside you sometimes, don't you think, you know what, I'm going to just keep going it.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of things, I remember I used to work with a writer called Alistair Wood, who always said, and it made quite a big impression on me, that every ad that he'd made was 50%. Once it was art directed, he'd given it to his art director, it was 50% worse than he'd imagined. Because you do a little scribble, and it's like, and Woody Allen says a similar thing about his films, is that none of them are as good as they are in his head and in his drafts, and then they're made, and it's just what you couldn't do. And it kind of always stuck with me that shouldn't be the case, obviously. And what I've noticed since then is that certain things exponentially improve when they're made, that they look nothing as a scribble. So the Jigsaw one we talked about last, there's a klaxon going off because of the Economist.
Economist alert.
But that was a sort of okay as a scribble. And then when it was made, somehow it takes on, obviously you know how it's going to be made. You can picture it, it's red with a white gap, or the other way around it could have been. But somehow when it's made, it comes with a lot of confidence and gravitas that wasn't there as a scribble. Equally, I remember seeing the ad that was rejected at the time, which was the Volkswagen marriage ad. And I said, well, why is it rejected? That's really good, isn't it? And obviously, if you imagine that as a scribble, out of focus has been drawn by wiggly lines. It doesn't look out of focus as a scribble. It just looks like it's got wiggly lines, and it probably said out of focus. So it doesn't look anything.
Right.
But if you're an art director, you think, it's quite neat to have some of it out of focus, the key bit. And again, those ads go from being quite neat to all of a sudden when you see the finished thing, they're like, 500% better because you don't have to think about it or imagine, and they take on a different thing. So that's one of them. That through that process, it sort of, it just seemed to improve.
Did it stick with a stock shot, or did you shoot it in the end?
No, I used the same shot. I sort of, it's funny really, because that was literally, I looked through a drawer full of shots that the Douglas brothers had done that were in the basement. That was the only one that sort of made it fit.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because sometimes when you do a film for a pitch or something, and then you remake it and everyone goes, well, that's slightly did worry that. And also we probably didn't have the budget to, it was probably, we would have had the budget to go somewhere and reshoot. In a way, that's why I like this, because it just feels it just feels real, and you've put it together.
Well, there was a lot of, at the time, if we want to get really nerdy about it, there was a lot of decisions to be made on that, which is that broke the rules of the previous campaign, which had done really well. It had won lots of awards. It was in all sorts of books, but it had this neat little bit of art direction where I'd had a headline and then 3 lines of copy that went into the 3 bars of the logo, and they were all very, pale washes over the pictures. So it felt like slightly breaking a winning formula to not have that little branding device of the 3 lines of copy. And also the layout of it wasn't based on the previous ones, it's the same font. Then the other thing is to have this bright red picture, which it didn't start off, seemed to be breaking from that, because they were all sort of quite pale blue and pale green. That felt like an intense bright red. Feels like it's a wrong thing to follow on from that. And then at the end, I sort of put this sort of dark thing so that you could focus down on the street. But to me, if you follow the idea, you think, well, the person's supposed to be desperate, wanting to stop, sweaty, whatever. It looked too calm and gentle. So the red was a sort of good
the blood
thing
flow's
to
going,
look.
and the
it's like you're almost going to faint. And then the sort of focusing thing that I put literally right at the last minute, 24 hours before it went out, again made it look like 100% better somehow, because it focused your eye down the street rather than this flat thing. So there are sort of little things that you're always weighing up this, should we break with the last campaign? You don't want to approach every ad like a one-off. But
No,
I sort of did in that instance, and it worked out okay.
I can see the struggle, but it's fantastic. Just even still looking at it now. I think we need to flip on to the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we move on to the street ball one? I really like this.
Something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because this won 0 awards.
Really?
I did this for Tony Barry, and I really liked this, and I like it now. It was.
Could you describe it so we can?
Yeah, sorry. You can, so basically, the idea was that, from memory, the Adidas Street Ball Challenge was some sort of urban basketball competition held in London. And, the brief was to alert people to this. It was being held in Battersea Park, get people there. There was a poster campaign arranged. Now, obviously, you can pretty much say the Street Ball Challenge, Battersea Park, give the date, job done, really. But obviously, we were trying to do something better, and that got talked about. This is pre-social media, almost possibly even pre-internet. What would this be, about 95 maybe? And the idea that we did is we thought it's quite interesting that you've got these big flat billboards all around London that you could put a basketball hoop on that, and possibly, the idea would be that people would use it to practice. So you could turn these poster sites into practicing things for when they actually turn up to the Battersea Park. That felt like a really good word of mouth thing that would get talked about, picked up if it was now on social media or whatever.
Yeah.
So we just pinned these hoops up and said Adidas Street Ball Challenge, get practicing. And then it said the cunning bit of Battersea Park, 22nd. So
it's brilliant. Did people...
we got lots of reports of, particularly if they were near pubs for some reason, there would be... people would go over the road and use it. So we got a lot of reports of them being used, because if you got basketball, why would you not?
Yeah.
We should have obviously, in retrospect, taken a lot of pictures of people.
I was going to say, if it was now, you'd have all sorts of...
If it was now, you'd have all sorts of famous people doing it.
We're looking at it on the screen, but I have put a tiny thumbnail of the D Rose jump store, which happened many years later. So I started thinking last night, it's kind of like a forerunner a bit for that,
Yeah.
So and that's... but I love the fact that yours was just sort of kind of so pure and sort of a bit ahead of the game, really.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason it didn't. We were really optimistic with that. We thought, God, it was unusual at the time to use. You'd have things like the famous Araldite thing with a car, which always seemed like cheap to me, because that was held up
with
on scaffolding. Yeah, so you think, it's not really stuck on it.
Apparently, it was real glue.
It's bullshit. Of course, the glue is not going to hold a Ford Cortina onto a poster.
Steve-O.
I know they've got some Weasley around it, which is fine. It was really good, and it was really noticeable, and it helped them. But obviously, it's not stuck on the poster.
Steve-O from Jackass?
Yes.
American kind of reality show.
Yeah.
He was gaffer taped to a billboard on the side of a freeway in the US to advertise.
Was it? Brilliant. That's good.
And they shot the whole for his program, I think.
Okay, good.
His launch.
That's great. Yeah.
But they shot the whole film of them testing him being gaffer taped.
Right.
And they put him on the side of a truck and drove him down the road.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, brilliant.
They fired fireworks at him and all sorts.
This is like an advertising
very funny
outdoor campaign, best use of live person.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there's a few of them now.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to move on.
Go on. What have we got?
Another thing beginning with A, American Airlines. You left Lagos to go to DDB.
Yeah.
And I love this campaign. And I started thinking about at the time, would there have been like a lot of teams clamoring for like VW briefs, and this one seemed lesser, or was I got completely wrong?
No, you're 100% right. I think it was a really good bit. There was really good people at BNP, DDB. It's always been good. It seemed particularly good then. And they'd gone for it's interesting because my leaving card from Lagos, I think Tony Davison and Kim had done it, said goodbye, and then you open it up and it said 2 awards. and basically the reason is because it was felt that that BNP was like so bogged down in planning that you just could never get any work out and whatever. And I think Tony and Kim had come from there, and obviously they'd have some issues with it. But so it was sort of seen as as not a good place to go. It seems hard to believe now, but it wasn't like that. It was amazing. Richard and Andy were doing really great stuff, and also their attitude was really infectious to lots of people there. It might have changed it a bit, which is that they would work on anything. And obviously, we'd come from Liga Solani, so we didn't have any choice but to work on anything. You know, so there was this sort of feeling that everybody wanted to work on VW, but also amongst certain people, Richard and Andy being one of them, is that you would try and find new accounts to work on and make good rather than just to, VW and possibly Sony. So, they'd done Marmite, amazingly, still growing now. And that was the sort of vibe. There was a certain attitude amongst some of the people to try and find things that were sort of slightly dormant or not good and improve it. And someone came into us once, I think because I was head of art, someone had said, can I change this poster? And it was an American poster for some sort of JFK to London or something, that had been done in the States. And I think it literally just had to be turned from American spellings to English. Right. It was nothing. So I said, well, can't we do our own one? If it's running over here, surely we can do our own one. So me and Sean worked on something. So until then, everything was just imported from the States, and it was like really low rent, terrible, boring stuff. Anyway, we did a poster for JFK instead that they run, and they really liked it. So the next time it came to some work to run in this country, the guy who'd asked me to just adapt the poster, oversee it, said, look, there's a chance there's some new stuff. Why don't we pitch our own work this time? Are you interested? So I said, yeah, absolutely. So it was all in a bit of a panic. For some reason, I remember it being done quite quickly. And they briefed us and said, well, this time it's not going to Heathrow. It's not going to JFK. It's going to Newark. It's going to Newark. So we were, okay, what's good about that then? And well, it's another place. It's a completely different place.
It's not.
And they couldn't really. There wasn't really any. You think, well, is it quicker? Is it a nicer route? Is it? They've got more tubes. So there must be something. Well, no, not really. It's just another place. So, and I don't know whether that was because it was needed so quickly they hadn't researched it, or whether it literally was. It was like took the same time. It's just a different airport. Doesn't make much difference. So I think from memory, it looks like one of the sort of things that have come out of that, which is that sort of instant response. You think, so what? It's just you go into New York from another place. Then is that the brief?
Right.
Which starts off as a sort of piss take, but then before you know it, you go, well, so you're going into New York, but from another angle, you're going in from the right rather than the left. Whoopee, whoopsie-doo. So from that sort of flippant attitude, you think, well, it is what it is. That's, you're essentially alerting people to the fact that they can get there via another place. There's nothing good to say about it. Let's do that. Say, go there from another angle. And then we thought, well, let's just show New York, which is obviously an amazing looking place. Everywhere you look is amazing. Let's just show that from unusual angles. And that was it. So I got a photographer.
So
John.
You shot these?
We shot these, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I didn't go for some reason. At the time
I'll stay here.
It's ridiculous. I'll go tomorrow. Then I was thinking, we've got loads of briefs on. Surely another photographer can find, he's a photographer. He can find new angles.
Did Sean go?
No one went. No, we sent him over there. Very trusting just dropped in the plane afterwards, yeah. It was Dave Wakefield's idea, which was a neat thing.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think so. I think initially it was I think so. I've got a vague memory of Dave saying, why don't you drop in a little plane in there, which obviously makes it much better.
Oh, no, because right, so I'm thinking the other way around. I'm looking at it a couple of days ago going, oh, love these, the photography, the whole thing about New York, such an exciting city, black and whites, it's sort of like, it's Woody Allen, it's all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's exactly it was Woody Allen, and it was the reference I gave Dave Wakefield. and probably the client, was the beginning of North by Northwest.
Yeah. Okay.
So the type is like that.
Can we go on to the
and
next
it's like-
slide?
Have you got
I'm
that?
quite
Yeah.
excited.
Called it.
I sort of.
Yeah, it's a rip-off, that's why.
Oh, right. Okay.
Well, not a rip-off. I mean, it's inspired, but yeah, there you go. Like,
So,
what a rip-off. No,
I hadn't found this last one, and I saw it. Oh my god, it's one of my favourite films of all time. I love everything, the type, the music, and I was like, oh great. And then I thought about The Little Plane. And have you seen the opening sequence of Roma? That movie.
So.
It's people either love it or hate it. It's a bit Marmite, but it's just someone cleaning this floor, and it's just a locked off shot, black and white, beautiful, in my opinion. And then there for a moment, a little square of light comes through the top of the building, and this plane just goes all the way through. And I was thinking, oh, it's like that stuff, and it's just, all these things coming together. It's sort of, and that's why I love the campaign, because it's sort of a gentle thing, and it's come not from over thinking or crowbar and stuff in. You just kind of, it's just from another angle, but then you've put all the joy and the love into. Yeah,
and it's, I mean, with all these things, you sort of get your basic. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes these things don't start. The start point is, so that's it. It's just you get there for a different direction. Essentially, it's sort of the idea. Yeah. And then you just build it. You go, well, if we get a photographer to shoot it from unusual angles, New York, it's going to look great. How could that not look great? Whatever he does. Then you do the type like North by Northwest, sort of. And that's your start point, where the type interacts with the pictures. So each bit makes it exponentially better.
Yeah, and by the end,
it's sort of knowing that the thing you've got in the beginning could end up.
But the thing in the beginning is it's a slightly facetious. What?
Well, it is. Yeah, lots of really good work comes out of.
Yeah, but actually, isn't it ironic as well? For Tony and Kim going, oh, it's strategized to death over there.
Yeah.
But funny enough, you've kind of built your own strategy from. Because there wasn't enough time, I suppose.
Well, I think again, like a lot of I always say to the younger teams that when there's a problem, if there's a problem or there's a timing problem, it's always a really good opportunity, because I can remember I've got a vague memory. What does it say there? March 3rd. I've got a vague memory. These were done coming up to Christmas, and there was like 2 days to do it, or
right.
Then that would have been really quick. Now it's probably normal, but so it felt like it was. So obviously the benefit is if they've not got long before they have to make a decision, if they go with what you've done, you've got a lot of leeway to improve it and make it good. It's not going through rounds and rounds of.
Yeah.
So that comes with its own positives. But yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
So it was from DDB onto
Abbott
Mead.
And that thing called
Economist.
That's it.
Right, moving
on. But we do have a question about The Economist, don't we?
What's that?
About your Mont Blanc.
Oh, you bastard.
You bring that up again.
We were going to do that.
We did that last time, remember?
I really thought we'd forgotten that. Oh, God. He's thinking that I should try my line on you. The line was, decisions makers make the same decision every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Dave...
It went down similarly last time.
I'm just trying to read Dave's face.
Yeah. And I want a writing implement which wasn't a pencil. It was a pen. It was before I was really established in the industry.
Yeah.
Yes. But can we talk about Merrydown next?
Yeah, let's have a drink. Merrydown. Yeah, I mean, this seems to be your sort of, how would you describe it? It's been with you for many years. Where I've got 2003, 4, 5, 6 at different agencies.
Same agency,
but rebadged sort of.
Not when I was there.
No.
So through that time, when I was there, it was CDD, and then when I left, they called it Shop for the 9 months that it went going, and then it wasn't called Shop.
And was Merrydown a client that you were very close to?
Yeah.
Because it sort of feels like you.
I think it's a funny one. It's funny, the posters you've picked, and
you can go on. There's loads more after this.
Yeah, no. It's just interesting that they all seem, and I don't know whether this would be the case of a lot of work if you looked into it. They all seem to have come from such sort of doodly, So the Adidas one is sort of just thinking, what do you do when you're running? The last ones we talked about, the American Airlines, is, God, that's it. Is that all it is? Just get there from a different place. And then this one was just literally coming out of the meeting, being briefed, thinking, that's weird. Look, Merry means happy and down means sad. And that's both in the same name. literally jotting it down, then doing a face, and then putting the thing, smile up one way and sad the other way, and thinking, that's interesting, what's that? And then sort of ignoring it, thinking, well, it's not really an ad. I don't know what it is, but it's quite interesting. Pinning it to the wall. And then, as they always the saying is, your best idea is your first or last. But I thought, well, it's not really it. What is it? I don't know. It's interesting to me, but I don't know what it is. It doesn't, particularly then, ads much more were saying, it's brewed in Germany from this thing or that thing, or it's made from the finest. You didn't really just, mostly you didn't just say the name. Although, ironically, 50 years before you probably would have done. But so it was a little doodle that occurred to me that I pinned on the wall and thought, well, it's not anything. Some teams worked on the brief, that lots of work came back that was like, Apple based or wherever they were. I can't remember where they were, Dorset, I think. And you just think, well, I don't really care about all this stuff because it's not unusual. It's not distinct to this cider brand, what kind of apples or I don't give a shit. And it just felt so boring, really. So again, possibly partly out of desperation and partly thinking, well, I quite like just go out there and brand things and have fun with it. Because the biggest issue was at the time, it was mainly drunk by, as the client said, tramps and students. Right, was their constituency. Yeah.
It's a cool demographic.
Yeah, which is the desired one. So the overriding thing was it would be good if it was sort of reassessed that it's not in the category of the tenant super. Yeah. There's a few drinks that were in that because they were quite cheap. It'd be good if it's reassessed and it felt a bit cooler and a bit more sophisticated. So that was sort of one of the bits of the brief. And I thought, well, you could do that. Again, I think it's the benefit. I mean, it's not so you can't do it if you're a writer, but it's the benefit of being an art director. You think, well, that upside down thing, we could get loads of cool people to do that. And that could be interesting and fun and different and stylish. And seems like it's the best thing it's got going for it to brand it in a cool way.
When you went back to them with the work, did you sort of go, well, you could have done a thing on the apples or brewed how long you did it, but we just think it's all about the name? Or did you just go, this is it? Did you give them...
I can't remember.
No. Because it's some ways, like we said earlier, it's so brilliantly simple. It's come the roots above the name. And then it's this license to then have so much fun. Did you go in with multiple executions to saying this, and this, or was it just a...
I think, I can't really remember, to be honest. No. I think it was probably, like, again, once you start thinking about it and thinking, one of the issues was, it seems a bit random, merry and down. And then I thought, well, maybe if he's happy because it's full and then he's down because it's empty, at least it sort of ties in a bit. Yeah. And then that sort of made another little leap to make it a bit better and a bit more bespoke. Then I'd sort of done a bit of research on the Victorian faces that work both ways. I'd sort of vaguely seen some of those, bought some books on that. So I would have had some references of that. Probably mocked one up, got the studio to mock one up. And then probably gone on about the benefits of branding and, of how many you could do and whatever.
So after you've got the green light on the concept, you've gone out and sourced tons of artists and illustrators and briefed them on the same...
Well, no, what I did is oh, wow, you've got loads. I think we did about 45 or 50 in the end, which is good. I think I had a budget that would buy us 3 illustrations. I think at the time, a decent illustrator would be about 1,500 quid or something. Maybe $2,000, I can't remember. Right. But anyway, I had maybe $6,000 to make 3, because obviously the start off with the campaign was 3 posters, I think. And we had about $6,000 that was allocated. So I thought, God, it's a shame we can't do 10. Great to do 10. Because obviously, I think 3, what's the point? You want to see, because for each one that's different to the last, it sort of improves it. So I sort of made the decision to cut the illustrator's fee to the amount that would allow me to do 10. And I thought, well, I'd rather get 10 people who want to do it and have 10 different ones than 3 people who will say yes because we're giving them $2,000 or whatever the fee was. So I cut it all to a really savage amount,
Right.
And also I thought, well, it's if I was an illustrator, I'm always optimistic about these things, but I thought if I was an illustrator, I'd quite like to do one of those. You've got no, naff stuff coming. It's literally all them. The whole thing is handed over to them. And there's the challenge of how do you make the face work. So it's a cool thing to do if you're an illustrator. So I thought, I bet a lot of them would do it or start doing it the minute you start talking to them about it. So I approached 10. They were literally, there was Gary Baseman, who's like an enormously famous American illustrator. We offered about £500, I think, and everybody said yes. So
do you think because it was literally a one-line brief? It's like you have no websites, no headlines, nothing. It's just
I said I will not interfere. I'm going to give you this, and the trade is I won't interfere. I won't come back and say, "Can you make his eyes bigger? Can you do this?"
Did you have any?
So I that was the thing.
Yeah. And then change. You're smiling now, Dave.
And
Did you change them?
And then occasionally I would say, I don't like that. But very occasionally. But so some of them, I'm looking at the ones you've got there, I didn't have anything to do with any. I mean, some of them I would get involved with because you would get like an etching in. There's one where there's a guy with a pinwheel hat and it's an etching. You think you can't just have that on black. So I've dropped in paper and different things. And then one of them I sort of rejected, even though I said that I wouldn't, because I just thought it was not any good. So I sort of got involved a bit, but we did about 45 or 50, and there was probably only a problem on 3 or 4.
They're brilliant. I mean,
so it was a good ratio.
There's a sort of thing. If you're a student, you'd rip off the wall and have it in your room, wouldn't you?
Well, that was also the idea.
And tramps as well. Sorry,
tramps obviously
students,
would have it under their cardboard.
Nice, 45 of them. Nice.
So I think the things that there were interesting things that came out of that. Once we'd done 10, I thought, well, we can ask anyone. And also they want lots of awards, though. So I thought we can ask anyone. So I asked, and in the first round, and I don't know whether we mentioned this last time, but at the time, someone, I think it was Dave Sullivan, said, a friend of mine is friends with Banksy.
Right.
Do you want to get him in? So this is like ages. I mean, he wasn't known. I was thinking,
right? Who's Banksy? Who's that?
He's the street artisty bloke. Do you want a scruffy street artist doing this? So he was sort of hovering around as a possibility. I don't know whether he would have done it. Obviously, a pain in retrospect.
He might have done one.
He might have done one.
That one in the middle at the bottom.
Yeah. So we didn't follow that up. Annoyingly, I asked a guy called. His name's completely gone. Very famous American illustrator who said no. Can't remember his name, so it's not much of a story without knowing who it is. I foolishly said Giles Rowell was a really great and clever photographer. Why don't you shoot one? Having no clue as to what that even meant.
That's in the first slide, I think, isn't it?
Is it in the
If you go up one, John, and one more on the left. Isn't that Giles?
Oh, that's it, yeah. So I said, why don't you shoot one of these things for us? He was doing lots of stuff that's on Mercedes at the time. And he foolishly sort of took that challenge. It was a ridiculous challenge to try and make that work photographically, but he did unbelievably well.
Yeah, I was going to say,
shot one.
Was that the only one that was...
It's the only one that was photo. I mean, I don't know many people who would even accept the brief, let alone come up with a result.
Didn't Mark... made a film for you as well, didn't he?
We did a few films. There was the robot one that Mark did.
Mark Denton.
It ended up being all on their bottles. There were sort of student competitions doing them. It sort of really expanded across a big area because obviously it's a piece of branding, really. So it can go anywhere. So it was on cases. It was on, all the beer mats and everything you can imagine. So for a short while, it did really kind of reinvigorate their business and did really well for them. And again, it's a funny little idea. My friend from Lowe, Alistair Wood, again, keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Said, I used to work on that. I can't believe I didn't spot that was happy and sad. It's fucking annoying. I don't know what he'd done on it. But again, it's like it couldn't be a more obvious, simple thing. But half of it is spotting it and thinking I could do something with that rather than spotting it and thinking it's not any which I was kind of thinking it's not
anything
anything
about the apples. Right. Well,
we've had our first round of on the ciders. We'll go our second round on the Adnams, I think.
Oh, okay.
The beer from the coast.
Yeah. Was it a bit of a frazzle time in your office? Like,
At the same time.
Come on, give us a bottle of that, Adnams. I mean, this couldn't be. We're talking about the Adnams 48 sheet campaign, and it couldn't be more serene and sort of calm compared to the Merridale.
Yeah, it's a different vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, did I tell you this last time I went there? And
Adnams Brewery?
No, I went to Southwold.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I saw these somewhere and I bought them and I framed them in my house. So your work was framed, and then my wife took them down. And I thought that was advertising.
Postcards?
Yeah, those little postcards. But so was there, because this is at the same time?
It was, I think it was the year after. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the year after the other ones. The other one ran for about 4 or 5 years. This was the year, the brief came in the year after we pitched for it and won it. I think, I mean, again, it's funny, they all seem so flip when you look at where they came from. So similarly, almost exactly the same as the cider stuff, is stories about, hops and, heritage, and just seems so boring, don't they? And, we did a big factory tour, brewery tour, and they give you all this pages and pages of notes you make about the minutiae of how they make their beer and why it's so different from the place up the road that makes their beer. I just thought it's so granular. Who gives a shit about this particular hop that slightly bigger or slightly, comes from Czechoslovakia instead of Norway, or I think who carries all that sort of fiddly information around? And I would be, the sort of main observation I had going into this is just I would go to Sainsbury's in Muswell Hill and I'd look at their shelves of bitter and all that sort of stuff. And they would just go on forever. And it was all names that you didn't really know. New ones seemed to be popping up and you think, I'll give that one a go. It's got honey in it, or I'll give this one. It's not like a big brand loyalty thing. And I thought the biggest issue was when you look at them, when you scan across all those bottles, whether you think, that's the one that, whatever that may be, even if that comes from London or this, if you can attach something to it that helps you position it in your head and not think, it's just another one with a blue label this time that's turned up, that would be helpful. So having come out of the brewery when things were being traded, or perhaps we do it on the fact they've got a special cat who catches this thing and stops. I mean, literally, these were some of the things getting kicked around. And we were, the brewery is like 100 foot from the sea. Right. I thought, why don't we just say it's the one next to that big blue wobbly thing? It's like, because there can't be any others. So I said, well, can we check into whether there's any other breweries that are by the sea? Because at least if we say that's the one by the sea. So at the time, the planner said, well, that doesn't make any difference to the taste of the beer. How does that affect the taste? It doesn't make it better. It's not seawater. It's not. Right. So I said, no, but at least it sounds quite nice that it's in a nice place and it's by the sea. I said, but what's the alternative? We talk about the hops and we get lost that we've got this hop, they've got that hop.
Yeah.
At least if I use my Sainsbury's thing, I turn up, I look at the thing, that's the one that's brewed near the sea. It doesn't make me think it must be good, but at least I can think, that's that one.
Yeah.
And they were, at the time, they were just trying to break into London. So we kind of developed that. We did develop a couple of routes on this, I remember.
Right.
And we say, instead of beer by the sea or whatever the version of that was, I remember there being a change to, doesn't coast sound more upmarket? Because I remember the CEO saying it was his goal to make Adnams the most expensive pint on the bar and to make it sort of to push drinking beer with food, not just wine, with premium beer with food, not just wine. Right. So we thought, well, I can't remember what the line was, but when it was by the sea, it almost sounded like seasidey, and you think coast sounds a bit more sophisticated in that market. So that was a change midway through the work. And then when we sort of did them, my little scribbles looked like GGT type scribbles. They were sort of, you mash up the coast, you got beer coast, and you do mashups like they would have done at GGT back in the day.
Yeah.
And they didn't look very sophisticated. They looked quite addy. So I thought, well, they could look like nice railway posters of the 30s, with those sort of certain sort of style, like Skegness is so bracing and there's that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought, the thing is, my scribbles don't convey that vibe at all. So I don't know, we can show that, we can say there's that, but it's going to look cool like that one. But so I said, why don't we get one done? Why don't we get one drawn for the pitch properly?
Right.
Because otherwise you just can't really, it just seems too down market, these drawings that I've done.
Yeah.
So we commissioned him a percentage of whatever his normal rate is. And he did that one in the bottom corner with the, what they call groins, those things. With yeah.
On the post.
So that was done as a test. And again, massively helpful. So whatever that was, £1,000 or whatever, was money well spent, because you show them that and they think, oh yeah, that looks really classy and that's cool. And then when you show them your scribbles afterwards, they go, oh yeah, it's going to look classy like that one. So we printed, it's one of those unusual things you present in the pitch, and they ran, I think 10 48 sheets first time round.
Yeah.
I remember they ran them literally 100% how we wanted to run them, which was unusual. And I remember going up there, and the chairman wanted to move the text from one corner to another. And we argued about it for about an hour. And then weirdly, which just kind of shows you what he was like, Simon Loftus, at the end, he went, okay, let's go with your thing. And I just want to say, I thought he was going to say, you've been a real fucking pain in the arse for an hour. We could have gone home earlier, but fuck it, if you're going to keep it. And he went, I just want to say, I really appreciate you taking all this extra time to discuss it with me, which was amazing. So
that's good.
So for better or worse, they're like 100%. There's like no
they're just
interference at all.
They're just so distinctive, and they don't show the pint or anything, but they just give me a feeling of just calm and just like other placeness,
Well, I think again, it's like we were saying earlier, that through the process of making them, they pick up various qualities and things as you go. And I think, weirdly with those things, I did do a blog post last year saying, well, what about this system? Why don't we do ads that people like? And then maybe they might buy our stuff more. And I think with these, they still sell them in the shops. They sell them as beer towels. They're on walls in pubs still. They're all over the place.
So, but did it end? Did the relationship end?
Yeah, because unfortunately, like lots of clients, we did about 10 48 sheets in the first year, and they did really well. So most clients think, well, job done then. We've got, we've got all the sort of listings we wanted, and sales have increased, and people seem to be aware of it. We managed to talk them into doing about 8 the next year. And then I think they thought, well, we've done our advertising. And unfortunately, they then didn't spend any money for a number of years, just little bits and pieces here and there. And then got in touch about 8 years after and said, our brand isn't as sort of, it doesn't appear special to people anymore. It's, it had that period where everybody thought it was very special and sophisticated. And now, since we've been running all this crappy old work, it seems like people don't like it as much. So we did I did some more stuff for them then in about 2000, God knows what that would be, 2008, 9 maybe. But it was a sort of different brief, because it was like Adnams was then spreading out across hotels and pubs and whatever. And then again, you do it for a couple of years and then they disappear. But it's got to be an ongoing, as we know. You've got to have an ongoing presence to keep reminding people, and to keep, you can't do it and think people remember that for 10 years. But
it's a
anyway, so it's a shame, because it could have kept going. And that again is a bit like the running one, where you'd sit down and think, right, what do you get on a beach? What do you get on the coast? And you sort of hit a wall thinking, we've probably done them all. We've done, 10. Yeah. We've done pebbles. We've done sea, sky. what else? You're virtually out. But then, funnily enough, you just think of a little thing and another one, and you sort of claw your way forward. But it feels it's a shame. It could have gone, and we did a lot, but we could have done a lot more.
It feels like a campaign, like you said. It just had a very unique look and feel, and they could run them.
Yeah.
Because especially now, and I don't know, there's sort of people wanting to get away and be more calmer, and there's this sort of whole, slow culture.
They should probably do them again. I mean, they when we spoke to them, 8 or 10 years later, they were sort of partly irritated because everybody still knew those, and they didn't know all the stuff they'd been doing for the last 8 years. It was a sort of double-edged sword, although it's the same guy who was marketing director. He was like, it's sort of annoying that they keep thinking of that. But then it is sort of quite good in one way, but it's sort of annoying. Yeah. So I think they get caught in this. Is it looking backwards if we do that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Before we have another beer, shall we talk about some chocolate?
Cool.
We've got Yorkie up on the screen.
So we should describe this.
I like this. Yeah, I really liked this. Again, I don't think this won anything, but I really liked this. Yorkie. So this was done at GAWT.
2016.
And again, I can't remember. Is it?
Somewhere around.
I don't know, something like that. And again, a sort of another imperfect thing. I mean, all of these, I've not thought of this before, all of these beginnings seem imperfect, and it's not like, here's what we should do and then we execute it. They all seem like they're problematic. So one of the writers at JWT had this idea of selling Yorkies on Amazon, and I was looking after that. That brand. So it was aimed at the time, probably problematic now, but the line was not for women or not for girls or something.
Yeah.
So he'd had this idea on selling it on Amazon for men. Somehow it would come up in their feeds. I can't remember what the men element was, but it's selling them individually on Amazon for men.
Man fuel for man stuff.
Maybe. I can't remember. Maybe it was in a line. So we looked into trying to do that. There was something cleverer than just selling Yorkies on Amazon. It was somehow linked to men. I can't remember what the thing was. So we sort of looked into that. And then as we started thinking about that, we thought it'd be funny if there's customers also bought, and then you buy these really funny, you have these, could we rig it that things like anvils and really cliched, big boy chairs and could they come up? So then it became from not just selling on it, but trying to get those things come up, which is obviously cheating the system, and that became problematic. And it was like, well, that's a shame. That's really funny. You show the thing that you can buy, and then you show all these super macho, cliched men things, WD-40, I can see that.
Yeah.
And then the news, so I had it pinned to my wall, and then the news come back. They said, we just can't do it because we can't cheat the algorithm or something. There was some problem with it. So I said, fuck it, let's do it as a poster then. It's funny as it is, isn't it? I mean, it's not like a poster, but it's funny. I like the fact that if it looked like that, you got to think there's that's a mistake, isn't it? Isn't that coming from someone's laptop or something? Yeah. So it's one of those things, although it's the opposite of what we started with SHN, in that it's not one simple, loud thing. It is something that I think you lean in because you think, what's happened there? Is that a mistake?
Yeah, but it's a visual that everyone is aware of as well.
You know the context of it, but it's out of context when you see it on a poster. So you think, what's happened there? Is that coming from someone's feed or what's gone on? So it breaks that thing where you can't help but look because it's unusual. And then you need to look because you need to see all the details. So, and then you see Yorkie milk chocolate bar, 60p. And then it says customers who bought this item also bought. And then the first one is an anvil with the price of an anvil there. Then a shed, then some dumbbells, then some WD-40. Can't see what that other thing is. Shaving kit.
A lazy boy.
Lazy boy, that's it, not big boy. A drill.
A drill, yeah.
With all the sort of links to go. So I love the fact that it doesn't look like any other poster I can think of. I think it would be really a miracle to walk past and not be intrigued to what the hell that was. But it breaks a lot of rules in terms of being super simple and postery and whatever. Yeah, but I really liked that.
But you get the dwell because of where it is.
And it's in stations.
Yes,
so
yeah.
you've got, if it was on you're driving past, it might be more of a problem, but it was put in stations where people are dying for stuff to read. So, yeah. So that's that one.
So we're doing a bit more chocolate.
Kit Kat.
Chocolate. Yeah. I think...
this is more minimal.
I think, it's very minimal, that. I think this is Kit Kat Black Friday. So obviously the ongoing idea with Kit Kat is have a break, have a Kit Kat. It's an amazing property to have. 50 years has it been going? I don't know how long it's been going, but and I think when I was at JWT, we probably did about 8 of these sort of topical sort of ads. I would get certain teams working on them, saying, right, it's Valentine's Day, Kit Kat, what's the link?
Yeah,
go and do that. This particular one I thought was really neat, which was, so it was Black Friday, and it was a barcode, but in chocolate color brown, with 2 Kit Kat bars in it, and then the numbers at the bottom are making have a break out of some numbers in there. The A is a 4, and that's it. Oh, the B is an 8. And then there was a question of, do you make it really big in the middle,
right?
Which might help you see it more, but it might look less like a barcode. So in the end, I decided to go for the sort of blank space.
No, I like
push it in the corner, a bit more barcoding.
I like that sort of phase of where Kit Kat, where they did a sort of thing where Oreos did in America, where they tried to do a topical ad every day for a year. And I remember seeing these Kit Kat ones coming up. There was one about the James Bond film.
Oh, yeah. I did that one.
I like that. And you kind of going, that's when it's at its best, because it's everyone knows it's have a break, but then now give it some
trying to find a new
spice. Yeah.
It's a real shame. We did, as I say, we did about 8 or 10 when I was there, the few years that I was there. And then it was a good opportunity.
Was it with Chris? What's the name of the designer? Chris. Can't remember now. Let's cut that bit out as well.
Awkward silence bits. No, they're great. It's real. Shall we?
What else have you got?
Well,
last bit one, Blackboard experiment. So this was something we found out about where one Christmas you decided to take do some research for blackboards in your local coffee shop.
Kind of. Yeah, that's more or less. Yeah. Basically, I'd been trying to think of a blog I could write that was the most basic advertising form humanly possible. So I was looking at, lost dog posters, or thinking, what's the most basic thing you could do? You could find the most basic form. It could be an ad in a news agent's window or something, and then put some discipline to it. So to not have so much information, to focus on key areas, to put some emotion in it, blah, blah, blah. So I was looking at different ways to do that. And the coffee shop near me, who I'm friends with the owner, had these A-boards, chalkboards outside that seemed to list every one of the 400 products that she had in her store.
Right.
And I was just thinking, who the hell is going to read through that? When you could just go in and have a look anyway. And then I thought, well, maybe I could use those. Maybe I could sort of take over those chalkboards for 6 weeks, do some ads, and then see whether they work. So there was sort of partly an element of thinking, bit scary. What if it doesn't? 30 years in, and you go, I tried it 6 weeks, couldn't sell a thing.
Couldn't sell one panettone.
But then I thought, well, Sonic, if it's bad, it's probably quite interesting. It might remind me of something. All I'm doing is I'm trying to write something on there that gets people to go in and buy something. It's the same as my day job. So, so I did that. So I took them over. I would do 4 a week every Monday, I think. And some would, like that one that you've got there.
Would you draw them yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Would on Panettone, literally cleared out of Panettone. Is unbelievable.
No way.
Cleared out of Panettone.
Effective as it was,
unbelievably effective. I don't know if I can write a paper on that, but that's.
Did you put it into can?
Did what?
Put it into can.
It went to pitch at the end, so they still wouldn't give it to me. No, I think so. Some of them would clearly sell things. Some of them, there was no discernible effect. And then there was some people, it would draw people in. I mean, overall, I think I think she compared her sales over that period in the year before, and it was about 9% more. But she said it brought in her main feedback, which was the best feedback, is it brought in a lot more people and people she hadn't seen, which she can only imagine would come to that. So if you do an ad saying, talking about particular pasta or cheese, and lots of new people come in, but they don't buy that, it's still good. You just can't trace it directly. It's probably with a lot of advertising unless it's digital.
And was that about the personality of the cafe being seen on an A-board cold from consumers? So she's saying that the tone of voice was...
I would imagine that it felt like you were in a dialogue with the community, that they were changing regularly, and B, because they were quite funny, it made them seem a bit more inviting, if I had to guess. So there's a sort of interesting thing at the end of, I did a couple of blogs based on this. At the end of it, I was just saying that when you do something on panettone, that she says, look, I've got a basement full of panettone and I'm panicking now. It's nearly Christmas. If I don't sell it by then, I've literally got to throw it all away. You do a chalkboard and they sell out of it in 2 days and she orders more. You feel like being carried around the streets.
Yeah.
You think, what a hero. But the thing is, it makes you want to write another board for a very specific thing so that if it sells out, you get the credit, which is like doing digital advertising. So whereas I did one that she wouldn't let me change that said, Highgate's finest purveyor of lovely bits and bobs. Didn't really say anything, but it sounded quite nice. She loved that and kept it there all the time. In fact, she's redone it in her own hand with some other information around it at the moment.
So I had numbers, just read.
But the thing is, that one, although it's not a specific product, people might think, oh, I'll try it out. But I can't claim credit for it because I don't know. If they see that and think, oh, I'll have a look. Yeah. And I think that's the sort of dilemma that a lot of advertising is in now. If you go digital, you can claim precisely all of the small details, whereas if you go on TV and other things, it's hard to know whether someone's gone directly from that. But the gains are bigger.
One's branding and one's a product-led message, right? So you've got something. Panettone is trying to drive panettone sales, whereas
100%.
the bits and bobs is about her brand.
But what I'm saying is, if you do much better getting people in to look at the whole store and buy stuff than you do just selling panettone. Yeah. And the same with digital is that, if you get people to assess the Apple brand, that's better for you than selling just the iPods. Yeah. But if you go digitally, because everything's traceable, you can trace the uplift, albeit tiny, whereas people don't take the gambles on doing brand stuff as much as they did because it's hard to trace. And
that's a big thing for out of home. It's
out of home is tough.
The link to immediate sales, if they're, it's quite hard when you see it on a brief, with the ambition is to drive someone to store. You go, well, attribution is really hard to do on out of home.
And also when you particularly with out of home, if you do have a week and the sales are great, they go, but it was really sunny that week. So
there's always a hole.
Or it was really rainy, so everyone was in. Or it's never as clear as we run those ads and this happened. But anyway, so it was quite. So I did it did remind me on some very basic levels. I tried to sort of keep honest and think, well, what have I learned from this? And it's a weird thing because you always have to shut your mind up and think, let's write what I've actually learned rather than what I think it would be good to say I've learned. And what I've learned is that if it's really simple, it stands out, and if it's really funny, people react to it. And you think all the stuff that I would have known getting into the business. But when I wrote it straight and what ones had done well, they were the sort of simple, funny ones.
We'll post a link to your blog posts in the description so people can have a read through. But we do want to move on to the most recent stuff.
Yeah,
another drink.
Another drink, it's very drink heavy.
We'll be smashed by the end of this, aren't we?
Although with Lucky saying we shouldn't be smashed, should we?
No, we'll be all right with that.
So these are lovely posters from Love/Fear, your agency.
Love or Fear. That's what the cool kids call it.
Sorry, mate. Love or Fear.
They don't use the slash. They just...
Don't slash too. Do you want to describe it for us there?
Yeah, so I think the brief with this was Lucky Saint beer is non-alcoholic, or it's got like a hint of alcohol. And obviously you're on Billboard, so you sort of can't say too much. And I suppose the more I do posters, the more I think it's got to be even simpler than I first thought, and it's got to be better branded than I first thought. So if the idea comes from a branding device, it's better than trying to explain a process, for example. So it gets you into that world of you're sort of borderline cliches, because you're trying to think, for most people, we'd be introducing them to this beer, Lucky Saint, and I can't see is it 0.5%? 0.5, I think. Yeah, 5% alcohol is the key thing. And obviously you think, God, what do you do? You don't want to just talk about the fact it hasn't got alcohol in it, because you end up apologizing for it. And it sounds like it's a product that's like it's not a first choice. It's like a substitute thing. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to sort of celebrate it. So obviously you've got Lucky Saint, and the key thing is that people remember it, and you think, well, what have you got? What's there in Lucky? What's there in Saint? It's an unusual name. Saint, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I did, roughs I did, most of them based on Saint. And you think, well, the halo thing seems quite neat. It's sort of, is it a cliche? I don't know. But you think, well, it's a useful device to get people to remember what the beer was, if it's got a halo, because it's the only one with Saint in it. And if you're driving past these and you think, that looks quite nice, and you think, oh, it's the one with a halo in it, it's easy to kind of track back to try and figure out who that was for. So I think there was a sort of short list of about 10 different ideas that had halos. And then it was just trying to figure out which ones we could do, because I think in terms of executing them, as always, the simpler something is, the harder it is to execute, because there's nowhere to hide. So with these, they're sort of simple shots, but the halo is crucial. That, for example, on the gas one, that's supposed to be that you open a bottle, and where you sometimes get that sort of gas misty thing coming out, it's forming a little halo. If that looks drawn or like we've retouched on it, the poster's going to be naff. If it looks like we've just captured it, it's going to be cool. So it's like, the difference between terrible and great is super thin. It's just looking at that, thinking, is it too strong? Is it too perfect? Does it read as a halo? Is it not perfect enough? It's all those, what's the technical term for those? Aesthetics. It's all the aesthetics that go into making it brighter, lighter, more squashed, less squashed. And just thinking, that seems believable. Is there a little bit of gas that links to the bottle? And trying to observe that stuff. And I think the same with the one with the splash at the top, the sort of, where it's sort of splashing back and there's a halo flicking out at the top. I think, it's quite tough to do. I think I like the beer shot in that. It's quite unusual. I sort of had this bugbear that if you look at old beer shots, like from Stella, they look absolutely amazing. The beer looks amazing. Yeah. The shot looks amazing. Whereas when I was at Mother and we would get the Stella pictures in globally, they looked like I could have drawn it on Photoshop. They were just absolutely hideous. This greeny yellow liquid they'd rubbed out any personality on it. I mean, it would just look hideous. And most beer companies use these similarly retouched shots that don't look like photographs. They look they just look like sort of bad illustrations to me.
No, I would definitely like to drink that now.
Yeah, so it's an odd thing, because I kind of looked at all these old pictures and thought, well, why are they good and these are not? And then thought, well, let's make it imperfect so that it's sort of the head is slightly too big, it's spilling over the glass. Let's try some different things and not try and make it 100% perfect. So, which we did. And I think one of the nicest things about it is this shot of the beer, which Kevin Mallet did, which is great, because it looks, aside from the halo, you think that looks like it's unusual to see beer like that, and it looks like it would be nice to drink, which is a good thing if you're selling it.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it is I like the name. I think it's a great name for a drink. I mean, Lucky Saint sounds cool, and then even if it was just a regular pint, but then the thing with the halo, and you go, oh, it's a low alcohol thing. It kind of it's more rewarding the further you go into it. Well,
obviously the halo is like a purity thing, so that's what I didn't explain that. Halo is like pure, isn't it? So
yes,
which is presumably why they're called Lucky Saint.
Yeah.
So showing the halo as a purity thing, and it's 0.5% is how that ties together. So
I like the idea as well. You weren't apologetic about it. You were actually going to celebrate it. There's a really interesting, different way in that.
Celebrate the halo or the beer?
The beer.
Or both. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, kind of going, it's a bit like, oh, we haven't got any alcohol in. And you're suddenly going, what are you going to say then?
Yeah, I mean, at one point there was a debate, should we mention that it's low alcohol or not? You know, again, because you don't want to, all the low alcohol stuff I've seen historically has always been, you know, you can now juggle when you're on beer. You know, it's sort of, it's not, it's sort of apologetic. It's saying, yeah, it doesn't taste nice, but at least you're
doing that in the 0.5%.
Yeah, so you kind of, there was you know,
it's great.
But in the end, we thought, well, you probably need to let people know. We had to do an ad literally overnight saying, basically the pubs are open again. So I thought, well, I can't do another Halo thing because we've got to do it overnight. Let's just do Lucky Saint opens July 4th and then just have a keg. So the idea was like the keg is open, the pubs are open. It wasn't a particularly... Anyway, so I was looking at trying to find pictures to put as a background. And in all seriousness, sliding it round, trying to get the right crop, because that was literally just a background, just saying it opens then, meaning the keg's open. I sort of slid it and thought, oh, it's a Halo.
Oh my God. I love coincidences.
But you can't believe that's, and we used a bit of our media time to do that. But how could you not, how could that not have been deliberate?
But that's maybe
that's the campaign. That was
maybe you're a lucky chap. You know,
one of those lucky people.
The more I practice, the more lucky I get.
We're definitely pushing time. Although no one's commuting anymore, so we don't really have to stick to our commuter time.
Do you know?
We're
Saturday.
It's 2:45, so I'm aware of your timings as well.
You got to get moving.
We've got 2 questions remaining. The billboard that didn't happen, the one that got away, the one that's in the bottom drawer. You can hold on to it if you don't want to tell us, or if
I just wrote about this, or I'm writing about it. I can't remember whether I've done it or just it's the next post. I haven't really got many in the bottom drawer because they tend to be. I know it sounds like I'm bigging myself up, but they tend to be very bespoke things. So if you think if this one wasn't bought, the Lucky Saint, what are you going to use it for?
Yeah.
Or the same if Merry Down doesn't get bought. You can't use that for the Happy Sad Beer Company.
Yeah.
Or Adnams. It's by the coast, so you can't do it for Budweiser. Yeah. What else has come up? Or I don't know, American Airlines.
Yeah.
I don't know. So most of them tend to be... It sort of used to annoy me that I couldn't, lots of people go, oh, I just use this. And you think, oh, God, I keep everything. Why would I? Can't I do that?
I wonder if that's ever happened, because 9 times out of 10 you try and redo it and at the end it doesn't quite fit.
It's been mashed into it, yeah.
It happened a few times on The Economist, people pulled things out. Well, one in particular we mentioned. But
I guess on those famous accounts.
Big bottom drawers. I don't know how much they use them, but I don't think I've ever...
But on those famous accounts like The Economist, I'm not supposed to say it on this episode, but... there will be people working in other agencies going, well, one day I'll work on The Economist and I will come up with some ideas. They're going in the bottom drawer for The Economist when I get there.
Or when I get into the industry.
Exactly. There'll be youngsters writing.
What about a favourite billboard? Do you have one that you like more than others, or
of all time?
I don't know. There's so many. I mean, whatever springs to mind. I love the Bovril ones. Yeah. With the squares missing, the cow with the square missing.
Okay.
No picture. I love the Nike Jordan one. It's amazing. Some of David Abbott's Economists. I love all the ABC campaign in the States. Before TV, 2 World Wars, after TV, no World Wars, that stuff.
I'm just literally touching wood.
I'm just trying to think. The Weather Channel stuff in the States, I was looking at the other day, it's funny.
I haven't seen that.
It just has an arrow and it says, told you so.
Oh, so, that's good.
I don't know, it's just whatever springs to mind. I love the Apple Think Different campaign.
Did I tell you about the... graffiti that appeared on Old Street roundabout screens when we were doing all the Google stuff? We were not making things jiggle about, but being a bit more reactive to conditions, so weather reactive and all this kind of stuff. And overnight, there was some hoardings that were around while they were building some stuff at the roundabout, and someone had scribbled, "You don't need Google to tell you which way the wind blows." And the very next day, we put up the local kite shops as searched on Google. So it's some fun play on the context. Yeah, it's good.
The last thing we always ask, well, we haven't asked you actually, but do you have tips for young creative teams, young creatives wanting to, make their mark on posters? Is there any sort of rules you live by? Or I know you're thinking about don't put the logo on if you've got an end line with the logo in. I
don't know. I think my one tip would be is when you do posters to get a picture of a poster in situ, cut out the middle of whatever's on it so that it's blank, and then put your ideas in it. Because you'll find that some of them you think, oh, that's a bit complicated, because you get the context of seeing it there. Yeah. I think when you're in your own world of your own layout pad or whatever you're doing it on, or InDesign or Photoshop, anything's possible. Whereas when you start drawing it on a little square on a piece of paper, you think, oh, it's a bit fiddly. Yeah, when you see all those cars and buildings around, you think, how's that going to stand out? And going back to the beginning, like a little DJ thing, that SHN, that worked brilliantly in that situation. It'll only improve through the process.
You wouldn't put a Yorkie bar, like a screen grab off of the internet, would you?
Probably wouldn't do that, no.
Not initially, but then you think, that's subverting the medium.
Maybe. Get more pretentious, you do stuff like that.
Dave, thanks very much for joining us to launch season 2.
Thank you so much. And see you after the next pandemic.
Yeah.
6 months, season 3.
January.
Good to see you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
See you.
I'm starving. Oh, God. Me too.
We burnt right through lunch.
I thought you'd...
And I'm thirsty. And now I want a pint of Adnams.
I'm not sure, but I like the Lucky Saint. I like the whole thing around it.
If it's breakfast, I'd definitely have a Lucky Saint. But
you're going to have to really go through those to get hit.
90 pints of Lucky Saint, please.
And a bathroom, please. That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good. Really good. It's good to be back, though, isn't it? I mean, we're in a new, more echoey studio space.
And I'm not breathing as heavily, but I'm knocking things around. I still feel a bit clumsy.
Well, I mean, that's just you. We need some egg boxes on the roof, I think. Yeah. So we're going to take donations from our 6 listeners.
7. Yeah.
Mum's listening.
That tramp outside giving the money to. The chairs are nice. The bright orange chairs.
Yeah, they keep you awake.
Marginal migraine approaching for me, but no, it's good. I think we're all going to be set up. I'm pleased we did not remote. I think it's so much nicer having Dave back in and chatting and
no tinny Skype calls.
No, I think that's the way to go, because otherwise you just don't get the crack.
Yeah.
I think it was good of you to be hard on that. So thank you, Dan.
That's right.
Shame about
you were desperate all the way through summer to go.
No,
can we talk to someone? I need to talk to someone.
I've done the shed. I've done the bread. I'm all right. So no, let's do it.
All right,
let's do lots of it.
And next week we've got
Anton Mike.
Oh, Anton Mike.
No one did a joke about Anton Deck.
Well, that's because it's not funny.
No, but I sort of think you might find funny. I wouldn't do that, but well done. No, that'll be very good. I know them from years and years ago, and they're really decent lads. They're brilliantly talented. In fact, they're consistently brilliantly talented.
Good. Can't wait for that next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks again, Dave. And don't forget to follow us on social.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.